This is Wes at Bad Seed Games, and we are going to continue on with our basic AI systems. And now that we've got the conditions set up so that they are transferring properly, we're going to tell it to actually act on them now. So the next thing that we need to do is we're going to create a new finite state machine, and let's call this one movement. Okay, now a couple things that we need to do first. Now it is not the same state as the conditions, so movement doesn't actually know what's going on. It doesn't know what the conditions are, so let's feed it that information. So in the conditions, let's go and create a set FSM. 3 booleans are what we are going to transfer. Now we don't have to worry about telling the game object because it is on the owner, but we are going to tell it to go into movement. And before we get too far, we're going to have to establish the variables that it needs. These are going to be booleans as well, so in range, target in visual range, and target in sights. Okay, so let's go back to the conditions. In movement, we should now see target in range. Now, we're not going to set this manually. We're going to make it dependent on the value that we already have in here. And we're going to make sure it's done every frame. So let's go ahead and set up the rest of them. Okay, so now that we've got those set up, let's go over to the movement. Let's expose these variables so that we can see them change. And they should match pretty much the same up here as down here. So let's give that a shot. Yep, it looks like it's working. Alright, so what we're going to do next is we're going to tell it to move towards the enemy. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to tell it to actually create the condition to go into the next action. So let's create the next action. Let's name this. Let's call this idle. And let's call this one move. Now in idle, we are going to use a bool all true action. And this is a nice little action because it'll let you feed it as many Boolean values as you need and fire off the event once they are all true. And we're also going to have to give it the event. And set that in here. Okay, so since we have 3 Boolean values that we need to check, let's get them set up and tell it to send the event. Now, we need to get this to check every frame since it's going to be sitting on the idle. So let's do that. Okay, so let's give it a test. Make sure that it's working. Okay. Actually, let's expose this in the inspector. Okay, so we're within physical range, we're in visual range, and we're in the cone of vision, and if you've noticed, it's just popped over. Okay, now what do we want this to do? This one's actually quite easy. We're going to get it to do 2 actions. The first action is going to be a look at, a smooth look at, because a look at will snap it automatically, whereas a smooth look at will give it a nice gradual turn. Now, we're going to hard code the target in for now. And let's leave these features default for now. And the next one that we're going to do is going to make it move towards. Again, we're going to make it look at the target. And let's take a look and see what these default actions look like. Okay, here we go. So, there it goes. Aha, but you see there is one small problem. It has just sunk into the ground, and it's not listening to the walls. So let's change that. This one's actually really easy to change. Go into the inspector, and we're going to add a rigid body component. This basically means that for all intents and purposes, it has mass and it won't be able to pass through. So let's try it again. Okay. And it looks like it's trying to get to the green ball, but it's not going through any objects, nor is it going through the floor. So that's exactly what we need. Now, this is all well and good, and this is usable as is right now, but let's give it one more thing. Let's give it a couple test algorithms. And let's also give it an event to return to the idle state. You'll see what we need in just a moment. And I'm going to go into the idle and add a global transition of return. The reason why I'm adding a global transition and not just adding an event here and wiring it back, by creating a global transition, that means that whenever anything in this finite state machine tells it to return, it will go right back here, regardless as to where it is. So you don't have to worry about wiring it up. Now, if we wanted to, we could create a global event by clicking here. But since this event doesn't need to be accessed outside of this finite state machine, we don't need to at this point. So, and since the conditions that we're going to be looking for to see if they've changed are Booleans, let's look into the Bool test. Here it is. Now, in the preview it shows that it only has one Boolean and it only has a true-false. So let's add 3. One for each of the conditions. Target in range, target in visual range, and target in sights. Now we're going to want to make sure to test these every frame while it's in the move action. And since we're not going to accept a true statement because it's already true, all we need to do is a false. So let's pop in the return, return, return. Alright, now let's give it a go. Here you are. It's out of range. And it seems to be doing exactly what we need it to right now. Okay, and that's it for this video. Now in the next video we should be going through, in the next video and the next videos after this, we should be going through further actions on how to refine these actions, such as whenever it's within a particular range to attack the player, and other things like that. So if you've liked what you've seen so far, feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe, and have a good one.